This is a short video using Microsoft Excel and its payment function and goal seeking to estimate how much you can afford if you're thinking of, let's say, buying a house. First, let's take a look at how to set up the spreadsheet. The first thing you see here are just labels. You can just type those into those cells. I right justified these. The next thing you see is the answer you're going to get. I'm just going to start, let's say, by putting a 0 into that cell. So now I've got nothing I can afford. The payback years, a typical home loan would be 30 years. The yearly interest rate, the APR, it's running somewhere around 5% these days. The down payment, often that's 20% of the cost of the house. Let's say that it's going to tell us how much house we can afford. Well, we have to make a 20% down payment on that house. This cell will calculate that amount. And then finally we're going to have the amount borrowed down here. So this would be the amount we'd actually have to borrow from the bank after the down payment has been paid. And finally, the amount of the monthly payment. The program, the goal seek, will tell us what this could be after we actually specify exactly how much we can pay a month. So if we put in, let's say, $200, it'll put $200 here, but it'll calculate that, and then up here we'll see how much house we could afford. So let's see what the numbers are. This first one's just a number. You can put 0 in there. This next one is just the number of years. The cell C4 is simply the interest rate, so enter that as a interest rate as a percent. The down payment is also just a percent. The down payment amount is going to be calculated, and it's calculated by taking the value that will be in cell C2, the amount we can afford, and multiply that times the down payment percentage, which is in cell C5. So that's a very easy formula to add. And then we come down to the amount borrowed. Well, the amount borrowed will be the amount we could afford minus the 20% that we have to pay as the down payment. So cell C2, the amount we can afford, the, let's say, price of the house, minus C6, that's the down payment amount we're going to have to make to buy that house. So that's pretty easy. This next formula is the one that's a little bit more complex, so we'll slow that down a little bit. This cell is going to use the payment function in Microsoft Excel to figure out a monthly payment in this case. I want you to notice that after I put the equal sign in, which is required for a formula, there's a minus sign sitting right there. This makes the calculation a little bit easier to understand. So just put the minus sign right in there, and then type the PMT and the parenthesis, and then we're going to start putting in some cell references. Well, this first amount that we specify, the rate, is going to be the interest rate, which is sitting in cell C4, but that's the yearly interest rate, and we're going to make monthly payments. So we want to take the yearly rate and divide it by 12 to find out what the monthly interest rate is. So that would be the rate, the yearly rate divided by 12. The next amount that we need to specify here after the comma is going to be the number of payments we're going to make. Well, the number of payments, of course, would be the number of years of the loan that's in C3, in this case 30 years. And we're making monthly payments, so we have to multiply that times 12. So that's pretty straightforward. And then after the comma, we simply put in the cell reference to what the amount is. The variable, in this case, the cell location is C8. That's going to be the amount that we actually borrow from the bank after we make the down payment. So that's C8. That's just the cell right here that's hidden by this. So we enter those values and just press enter, and then we now have to ask the computer to calculate based on what the cost of the house is, how much we can afford. Well, except we're going to tell it how much we can afford, and then it'll tell us what kind of house we can buy. So this is kind of a reverse. And Excel has this very nice feature under the Data tab. You go to the Data tab at the top of your ribbon there. And under the What If analysis, there are three options. and we want to use the goal seek option. So we go ahead and select the goal seek option. And now the goal seek little box comes up and it says we want to set a particular cell, in this case C9, our monthly payment. We want to set that to how much we can afford. So this is kind of cool. So we specify that we want to set cell C9 to some value. Let's say I could afford $1,000 a month for a house payment. That's all I know I can afford in my budget. Well, we're going to want it to calculate how much we can afford by changing the amount affordable here in cell C2. So I'll just go ahead and click on cell C2. So you'll notice that we're going to set C9 to $1,000, and we're going to get there by changing the amount affordable here, cell C2. So I'm just going to click OK. And it goes through a rapid series of calculations, and you'll notice it tells me that if I have $1,000 to spend, I can afford $232,852. $232,852.02. But remember, that's assuming a 20% down payment, so it's subtracting the $46,570 from that price. So my actual loan amount to the bank would be $186,281. But notice how easy it was for me to find out, oh, I can afford a $232,000 house if I can come up with that down payment, and I have $1,000 a month to spend. Let's try that one more time. I'll just click OK. Go to my what if analysis. Go to goal seek. And this time, let's set cell C9 to, let's say, $1,500. Let's say we could afford $1,500. And again, we're changing the affordable amount here, so we want to say by changing. And Excel will go in and change this cell for us until it gets down to the $1,500 payment. Let's go ahead and click OK. It does the rapid calculation and tells me that at $1,500 I can look around at houses that cost almost $350,000. I would have a down payment of almost $70,000. And so my loan amount would be $279. Now if I wanted to change anything here, I could say, well, what about a 15-year loan? So I'll put in a 15-year loan, and then I click back down here on my monthly payment, and you'll see that it did make a change here. But notice the change on a 15-year loan said it's $2,209 a month to pay, but I want to use goal seek to use the $1,500 value. So I'll go to goal seek, and I'll do that again. I'll change it to back to my $1,500 here that I think I can afford monthly. And I want to again change the affordable cell, so I'll click there on cell C2 and then click OK. And it tells me then if I have a 15-year loan at 5% with a 20% down payment, and I can pay $1,500 a month, I can start looking at houses in the $237,000 range. So that's how cool goal seek is.